and we are live streaming on both YouTube and on X. Thanks for joining, and be sure to subscribe and smash the like button, of course, if you haven't already. And yeah, Kay, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's amazing. Thanks for hosting again, Nate. It's fun
Absolutely.
as usual.
Nah, good stuff. Good stuff. Sean, how about you? Feeling right today?
Yeah, feeling really good. I'm looking forward to the week ahead. Can be lots of anticipation, I think. So yeah, at least for me anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Big Neo week, right? So I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. And then lots going on. Last week of earnings, really, right? Not a lot more to
Loved it.
go. Yeah. So we'll get into that. Lots of good information coming, lots of charts. So before we get to it, quick disclaimer. Just remember this is not financial advice. We are three non-professionals just doing our thing, preparing each week for trading, looking at charts and sharing our ideas for educational and entertainment purposes only. So yeah, do your own due diligence, of course. But appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you get some good value out of the stream every week. So with that, let's start looking at some charts and get right into it. First, of course, as always, we're going to take a look at last week and how things went. How you guys feeling about last week? Any big trades jump out for you?
Well, I think the software companies, they were phenomenal last week. So not sure if you guys were looking at the different software companies, but some of the stocks were up 30%. Like one of the stock called UiPath was up 30% in one day after reporting earnings. CRM, and we're going to touch upon CRM just a little bit for what we predicted last week. But yeah, the software companies did amazingly well. You pick anyone, and they were like up like 8, 10%, 12% on just Friday itself.
Yeah, that's huge. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I think for me, fintech kind of stood out. Things like SoFi and PayPal. So we'll touch on one of them later on. Having a good move, which is nice to see. Been a bit beaten down recently, haven't they? So, but yeah, generally the market felt pretty good this week, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I've got negative sentiment on SoFi. We will talk about that, and
We will.
love to
We
get your
will.
take, Sean. Yeah. All right. Yeah, definitely interesting week. You see Google, Meta, and Nvidia, not the best weeks there, but other names, yeah, moving on up. So, like to see it. Looking at the VIX down with a 1263 number, like the 12 handle alone is insane. I personally think this is a great time if you had great returns for the year. Take advantage of this low volatility, buy some protection. I did that. I bought some VIX calls last week just to kind of add some downside protection, protect the gains from the year. And if you had a solid year, yeah, it's really cheap to get in on the VIX right now. But yeah, SPY, the diamonds. Look at the diamonds. DIA up 2.7%. That's a massive move. But you guys know me by now. The biggest thing that jumps off this chart is IWM, those small caps getting after it. We talked about it down at 170, and now 170 is like in the rearview mirror, up at 184, pushing 185. Just a huge move. And if we're going to get movement across the board, and we're going to get strength in the economy, we want to see it showing up in the small caps. So I'd love to see it. Any thoughts on the big indices this week, you guys?
I think just being the SPY being flat versus I think the cake was taken by the small caps here, IWM with 4%. That's
It's huge. And Bitcoin, this number of Bitcoin, I didn't update it this morning. I'm just now noticing it's surging. Like if I'm not mistaken, Bitcoin is pushing 38, 39K. So last week brought Marathon Digital, and that was up 20% for the week. That was a great trade. And looking for maybe more upside if Bitcoin can keep pushing. I don't know if you guys can check out what the current price is in
I
Bitcoin, but
am doing that right now
yeah,
as
the
we speak.
miners have started catching up and moving, so it's been great to see.
It's 39,555.
There you go. I mean, it's pushing 40K, you guys. So that
40K
marathon trade,
incoming.
I'm still in it, and it's still pumping higher. So really like to see it. We are in the greed section of the Fear and Greed Index. I think that's kind of fine right now. We've got
Yeah.
money managers trying to catch up on the year. You guys have any thoughts, Sean? What do you think about the Fear and Greed?
I think because the week we've had has been a bit bullish, a bit sideways, but considering a week ago is exactly the same spot, at least that's what I can see there. I think that's quite good. I think at least going forward for momentum for the rally, the Santa rally as they call it, going into the end of the year. So it's nice to see it agreed and not accelerating too massively into the extreme greed, which we could see in a couple of weeks. Who knows?
Yep. No, I agree. Kay, any additional thoughts there?
No, I think you guys covered it pretty well.
Solid. Keep it rolling. Look at earnings. About the last week of earnings, I would say it's like not much to really look at, except there are a few big names here. Sean, you got Neo Tuesday before the open. I know we like to, throw all of our Neo conversation your way. What is the big thing you're looking for, or should we wait till we get to the charts?
I mean, just a bit of financial stability within the company would be good. Just
Yeah.
a bit of a bit more outlook for 2024 would be nice. I don't know really, just a little bit more stability within the company itself. It's been a bit wavy this year with deliveries and obviously R&D and all that kind of stuff. But a nice solid look into 2024, just general outlook, I would say. But yeah, earnings wise, that's kind of all I'm looking at this week. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I like it. Kay, what are you watching this week?
I actually have a lot to this week as well. So we have GitLab that we are covering today.
Nice.
We have covered GitLab a couple times previously. I have MongoDB, SentinelOne on Tuesday. Then I'm looking at though I'm not a big fan of ChargePoint, but I do look at ChargePoint from an EV standpoint. And then the big ones are Broadcom and Lululemon. And then I'll throw DocuSign in there as well. So a lot of interesting stuff going on.
What about C3 AI on Wednesday after close? Definitely interesting.
Yes.
I mean,
GameStop.
Yeah, GameStop and Chewy. I mean, for me, I'm just kind of like, whatever. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest. I don't really trade either of those names. But I think GameStop is obviously going to get a lot of attention. C3 AI, I'm really curious about because everything going on with AI, and that name has had some major moves in both directions. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. Last week we had Marvell, right? And we talked about Marvell, either breakthrough resistance or tank. And what did it do? It fell off to the bottom end of its range, right? So good to pay attention to earnings, good to stay ahead of these things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you got on GitLab there, Kay. We'll keep it rolling, looking at the SPY chart. So first one up, as always, we've got some positive things going here. The 20-day moving average crossing above the 50, right? Pushing up towards the 460 level, call it for SPY, and trying to make new highs, right? New recent highs, push higher. And we got a little bit of a pullback. We called for it last week, and I mentioned that, but didn't really get the full pullback to 450, 452. Just kind of barely touched it. So I don't know. I feel like maybe we could still see that happen before continuation higher. Thoughts on this week, Kay?
I think this week should not be that volatile, considering that we have the interest rate decision coming up next week.
Right. Yep.
However, we do see a lot more optimism in the options market, especially on 12.5, 12.6, 12.7, where the put to call is between 1.13 to 1.37. There are some hedging going on Friday, which is 2.47. But I wouldn't read that too much into it, considering SPY has an options contract expiring every single day. But I think I'll wait for next week, honestly, to really see how the SPY performs.
So kind of a wait and see spot for you for this coming week, given
especially from a
levels we're at?
SPY standpoint, to see the trend, and if next week goes well as predicted by most folks, that we won't get an interest rate hike with the inflation numbers coming up and Jerome Powell speaking the following day. I think if that is in line, then you probably will see the new all-time, not the all-time high, but you could see higher leg up from here onwards with SPY. Unless you get a surprise, black swan event, anything can happen, then nobody can predict that, but that is a general trend for the Santa rally.
Yeah. What do you think, Sean?
I think we could. I said it last week. I think being sideways would be the best for the market. We've kind of had that. You mentioned obviously the recent kind of peak up on Friday, which is interesting. But one thing I should note there is the last 5 days have increased in volume sequentially. So that's interesting. The volume's kind of coming back in, maybe towards the kind of CPI releases you mentioned, Kay. But I would, if you look at the QQQ, which we put in a minute, you can see it tells different stories. So this one tells a potentially negative story, double top, reverse back down to 451, 444, who knows? But the QQQ looks like it's going to head higher. But for me personally, again, more sideways action would be best. But you just don't know with this market, do you? It's interesting, really interesting. It's good to see.
It is good to see. I agree. Let's look at the cues then. Let's just jump ahead and take a quick
Yeah.
gander at that chart. So,
Look at
like you
that.
said, we're above, right, that recent the recent highs. So making new high. Are these all time highs? Am I crazy? These are all time highs, right? Or are we trying to get back to all time highs
I
still?
don't think so. No, not
Still
quite.
trying to
No.
get there. That's right.
Yeah.
We're still trying to get there. These are the recent highs. See how excited I get. So 387.98, 388, right? Call it. Got above that, held it last week. So, Sean, is that kind of what you're pointing to? Is that we kind of held that support and moved up
Yeah.
off of it on Friday?
Exactly right. Yeah, I mean, it just tells a different story. I mean, you can kind of see a bit of a breakout trade opportunity here. If you were looking, if you were going to look at this on a 5-minute chart, you could consider it. But yeah, it tells a different story. I think this looks a bit more bullish, whereas the other one looks a bit more bearish, and they're both kind of leading the market, which is just a bit strange. So yeah, I think this will head higher personally. And just to your point earlier, the all-time highs are 408, so really not that far away in
Yeah,
terms of the
exactly.
great
Yeah.
scheme of things. So we could see all-time highs by the end of the year. Big claim, and I'm not saying it's not financial advice. You touched on it earlier on, but I think we could potentially see it.
I think tech would lead us higher would make
Yeah.
some sense, right? Like it's
It runs
been
the market, doesn't it?
yeah, it really has been the case for a long time now. Okay, what would you add? Anything on the QQQ chart?
No, I think you guys covered it pretty well. I think it is much more optimistic on the Q side. We have on 12.8 is 1.32 put to call, so much more optimistic. It's even 0.9 on 12.7, so that's a very interesting put to call ratio. But yeah, I think it's much more optimistic than SPY. But I think the following week is the real week that we want to watch for these two indexes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, we're back in that kind of wait and see mode. I wonder if we just chop around this week because of it. I am looking at cues if they do get moving, targeting 397.75 to the upside, and if they pull back, there's that gap to fill there. So that's kind of what I'd be looking at, targeting filling that gap down just below 380. So all right, interesting stuff with the cues and SPY, not exactly doing the same thing, but both making moves higher. Sean, I'm going to hand it over to you. You got Tesla today. All
I
right,
know.
new
I mean,
standard.
it made sense, really, didn't it, with the event that happened midweek? And I'll get your
Yeah.
thoughts on that in a second. But we'll touch on the technicals first, and we can kind of see a little bit of stability around that 20 and 50 moving average, which is the light blue line and the middle blue line. I've gone for a blue theme, as you can see. I'm always changing it up.
I like blue.
But I like this price action though, because it's kind of moved up to the top of the trend line and it's come back down. And it's kind of testing that kind of moving averages, and it could easily come back down to the kind of trend line. But I think the solidarity it shows kind of throughout the chart at these levels, I think we could see a nice little push off of it, and we kind of have seen that already on Friday, as you can see, nice little push off of the two moving averages. So ultimately here, for me, I'd be sitting on my hands and waiting for a break of trend line. But I don't see any reason why you couldn't get in now, or at least add now if you're on a longer position. Kay, I want to get your thoughts on that. In terms of long position, would you add here? But generally, before we jump into that, what are your thoughts on the Cybertruck? Because I don't like it personally, but I know loads of people love it. Loads of people pre-ordering all that kind of stuff. But would you drive one?
But let's start with Nate because Nate owns a Model S. Why doesn't Nate tell us first what he thinks about Cybertruck?
All right. So you guys are funny. I love that we're talking about this. First of all, I own a 2013 Model S. I'm going to drive it till the wheels fall off or the battery bricks or whatever, right? And I put 168,000 miles on the thing. Is where it's at right now. So drives great. It's like the best purchase I've ever had. So from that standpoint, I have nothing but positive things to say about buying a Tesla vehicle. It's been a great experience for me. The Cybertruck, I think it's like super interesting. It's not my style. Like I don't like driving huge trucks and SUVs. So you won't see me buying one or driving around one. But the second I can get in one and drive it, like some friend of mine or what have you, yeah, I want to check it out. Like I'm really excited to check it out. I am curious how much of a seller it's going to be, but I don't know if that necessarily is the biggest kind of point here. I think it's getting a lot of attention, whether you like it or you don't like it. We're talking about it, right? So I think that's kind of the big thing here. But yeah, I don't know how much it's going to add to the bottom line. It will be interesting to see. The price point was interesting, right? Like it's pretty expensive, but it wasn't like 120K expensive, so that's good, I guess.
Yeah.
I think, in my personal opinion, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not something that you will buy that car to go to grocery with, right? You're not going to do grocery in Cybertruck. I mean, you can. Nobody stops you, but it's a statement piece, right? It's like, just like you buy a statement piece in your house. There will be fans and there will be haters, but you will get the eyeballs regardless of the fact. And as
Yeah.
they say, the beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. For some people, it's one of the most beautiful cars. For others, it will be the ugliest car. So that's my take. I'm not getting one though. That's for sure.
No,
No.
neither am I. Not a big fan. No, but touching on the advertising you mentioned there, Nate. I mean, it's kind of advertising Tesla itself, isn't it, rather than him actually paying for adverts? Because he's always been against that. Elon, I mean,
Oh yeah, this is
yeah.
part of the marketing. Is just
Mm.
without paying for marketing, this is how they advertise for sure. I think there's a lot of brilliant strategies behind it all, and the event itself, right, got everybody talking about Tesla big time this week. So I think the chart here, getting back to the chart, is at a very interesting spot given the moving averages, kind of providing support. It rejected again though off that trend line to the upside, right? Like just swinging it back to these technicals, that to me makes me real hesitant to go long because I feel like maybe we're just going to see another resistance point there as we get back up to that trend line. So that's what I'm really watching for, is a break of that trend, and if we get through that, then for sure I'll be a little bit more excited for a near term trade. For a longer term trade, though, I think you guys are hitting it on the head as well, to just use that phrase again, and it might be a good opportunity to maybe take a nibble here. But yeah, Tesla is endlessly fascinating, right? And last week is another example of that.
Exactly right. Yeah. And Kay, would you agree with adding here for a longer term in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I tend to add when, especially we are around the 200 to 210 level. That's
Mm.
where I tend to add to my longer position. But at being in the options side, what I tend to do is I generally tend to open options out maybe 2 months out, maybe a month and a half, 45 days out, to get those nice premiums. So for now, I'm targeting the January 19th, from a trade standpoint. But from longer term, I will still wait to see how the trend line, how the trend can, we can have a breakdown. But my most of the times I tend to add between 200 to 210. That's my area where I tend to nibble more and add to my long term position.
Nice. Cool.
Good stuff. Keeping it going.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so where do I start on this chart? So I haven't had Neo for about a month, I think, just because nothing's really been happening. You can see it in the price action there. It's just going to be trending down. But I was looking at the chart on Friday, thinking I've got to find something on here for Sunday because obviously the earnings are coming up. And I found a possible RSI divergence. Now, I don't know if you agree with this, if you see the same sort of thing, if you would even trade on it or think about it. But that'll keep it quite simple, really, this week. But we've got earnings on Tuesday, and obviously, like you say, most weeks, Kay, it's a binary event. It goes up 10%, it goes down 10%, hypothetically. But that is kind of going to tell a tale, I think, for the future, at least for the next couple of months until the next earnings report. If we break above that trend line, we could see a move towards 10, 12, whatever. If we break down below the $7 mark, we could be seeing 6, 5, again, whatever. But I just want to see what your reaction was on the RSI divergence, because in the past it has proven to be a very fruitful indicator, should we say. But then going into earnings, does that really matter? But yeah, I'm going to hand over to you guys, see what you think on this. But that's my observation for NIO this week heading into earnings.
What do you think, Kay?
I actually was wondering if we can do like a map with Tesla and NIO, because I remember, I don't know when that divergence started happening, but back in the day, your Tesla stock price and NIO stock price would pretty much do a match, right? I'm not sure if we can do that now or not, but that'll be interesting to see. Now, in terms of the binary event, which is earnings, I think it's not really the earnings per se itself. I think the future guidance is where I think
Yeah.
it will lie. And if you can see, the last candle is a doji candle, which shows that the market is indecisive. So they are also waiting for the event to happen and then take the cues from here. um that's all I see over here at this point in time.
Sean, I think you're getting an eye for this
The
checking
divergence.
out the diverging RSI like that. Like I've been looking across charts since you mentioned a few weeks ago, and I haven't caught it myself. But yeah, this is really interesting here, and I think that if you get a break of that trend line that you've got going, it's just going to kind of confirm what you're thinking there. That's a good signal. I did not notice it, and you've got me really fascinated and curious about how this is going to go. It is the binary event, so do you think it's going to be really heavily determined on deliveries or guidance forward, or what do you think is going to be the biggest? Did you
I
already
think
say
I think guidance and delivery.
Guidance, yeah.
Yeah,
guidance?
guidance is the key over here for most companies. Now,
Seems like it.
one actually, we have a question from the audience, from John. What do you mean by RSI divergence? Sean, do you want to like kind of talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So you can see the two yellow lines on the screen there, and you've got the stock price with the yellow line kind of going down. And then you've got the RSI, which is down the bottom there with the yellow line going up. And obviously that contrast. Normally what you would get is a stock price going down and the RSI going down as well. So the momentum is poor in the stock. But in this case, we're seeing that the bears are kind of getting exhausted, I suppose you could say, if you want to call it that. And it's kind of turning around. The momentum is kind of turning. And I pointed this out on the end phase chart not so long ago, and the square chart as well, in these calls previous months or whatever. And they both turned. I'm not saying this one will turn. I'm just saying this is an observation that I've made with the chart. But basically, it's just kind of a change in momentum oscillator indicator. I don't know if you have a few more words on that. How?
No, I think you nailed it. And I think that one thing I'm curious about is with the past two times you noticed this, Sean, did we see higher highs with that RSI as well? Because here it looks like it's kind of flattening out and at that 50, level, and we are getting higher lows, but not necessarily higher highs. So, curious if that's like the same similar pattern what you saw before, or not something we can maybe go take a look at. But yeah,
Yes, I mean, generally that's how the divergence would work. So it would have to set higher highs, otherwise it's not a divergence completely. So whenever I see it, that's kind of what I'm looking for, higher highs.
yeah, no, good stuff. And John, thanks for the question. Appreciate that. Keep those questions
Yeah,
and
appreciate
comments
it.
coming. We love to hear them. And if you have any requests for ticker symbols, we take those too, right? So, anything else on this chart, Sean?
No, I'm looking forward to Tuesday. That's kind of all I'm waiting for, really.
Big Neo week.
It is, and you can obviously follow all everything that I do regarding Neo on X. I'm quite active over there. YouTube, obviously, I'll be releasing a reaction video on the Neo earnings, and I've got another one coming out due to profit taking and how to take profits this week as well. Which in this environment, I think is important. Obviously, stocks are moving up, and you can't just let them go forever, because eventually they will pull back. It's just part of how the market works. And obviously, the Substack, which I offer as well, every weekend I just choose 3 stocks and 5 bullet points for each one. It's really, really simple reading. And this week I did automotive sector, I believe. Yes, automotive sector. I almost forgot there. But yeah, go check that out. Really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Over to
Great
you.
stuff. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. All right. We mentioned SoFi. I posted about SoFi. I think we should talk about SoFi a little bit. So we got a nice move, big green candle or white candle here, you could call it, on Friday after a nice move up over the past couple of weeks, actually. And you can see this kind of trend line. It is a downward trend line that it's been in, or channel, I should say. So we're at the top of it again, and we did get a little bit of a wick right at the top of the candle on Friday. So you see the other line above there, that is the anchored volume weighted average price, anchored VWAP. And I've started to use that. I mentioned that a week or two ago, you guys. And one of the things I like to look at is anchoring from the recent high and seeing how price action is, or also the recent lows, and sometimes both, and see if we get a squeeze or what's going on there. Well, here you can see that this anchored VWAP is providing resistance, and it's tracking right above the channel there, right? So
Yep.
Here we are again, and then also notice there's a bit of a volume shelf right here at about 815. So that is also a little bit of point of resistance right where that anchor VWAP comes in. And so I'm thinking that we're going to get maybe a little bit additional upside before we get a rejection, a return back to the bottom of the channel. 643 might provide some support down here, so it might not get all the way to the bottom of the channel, but that's my target, is a rejection and a retest down there at 643. Sean, I know we talked about this a little bit this week. What do you think about SoFi here?
So this one I'd be looking for because it's a momentum stock, isn't it? Really, lots of retail investors behind it. Kay, you might agree. So we can see a big volume bar on Friday. And I think if we can get, I mean, it's really as simple as breaking these lines you just mentioned. And if we can get a big move through that kind of 815 level and hold it, I know I put my bullish hat on here a bit, but that's just how these stocks work. They get a little bit of momentum. People think, oh, okay, this one's moving, and obviously FOMO takes over. But contrary to that, obviously, if we have like a negative market and then coming back down to that 643, or just setting a higher low in general would be my main priority. But I see it continuing. Now, I'm not being overly bullish or hopeful or anything like that. It's just how I perceived this stock in the past. I mean, you can see it in the chart here. Back in May, once it moves, it can move with a bit of momentum.
It could really get going. I mean,
I think.
Michigan.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, you're good. I'm sorry. I think
Yeah,
on
yeah.
my end I glitched out a little bit on.
Yeah, I think I also glitched out a little bit here.
Oh, okay. We got Kay back. All right, go ahead, Kay. What were you going to say?
We have some major volume, at least I would say, at least the way I'm looking at my chart. So this is the biggest volume bar that we have, apart from one at 717. The next big volume bar is at 813. But the next level, which is also about, the 783 is the second big one, and the third one is 813. So we can still see a lot more buying coming in SoFi till that level. Now that does that hit your anchor VWAP at about 8? It does. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because then the volume dies down drastically. Still there, but it dies down. And then of course, we have much weaker at the levels above, but I won't go there. I think 813 will be the key here.
All right. Well, I'm looking at the same level. Sorry, Sean. I think it glitched right in the end of what you were saying there. I didn't quite catch it, but I'm guessing you're looking for a breakout there, right? Like this is a key spot, and when it does get moving, I think you're saying it really gets moving, right?
Exactly right. I'm assuming I'm thinking of a break of this line and probably a break of that VWAP.
Yeah, and then if you get that break, I mean, $9 is well in sight, and $1, that's basically $1 move, and $1 move in an $8 stock is significant, right? That's what is that, like 12.5% roughly, right? So nothing to sneeze at there.
It matches with my 843 with the fib level as well. So that's interesting. Yeah.
There we go.
All right. Nice.
Get some confluence. So yeah, SoFi. I mean, I know it's a lot of people's favorite, and long-term K, I think, and you're a fan, of course. But in the short term, I've got a short trade, so hopefully I don't get too much hate for that. But I got to trade the chart as I see it, right? And we'll talk next week. All right,
keep trading. There's no harm in trading.
Good stuff. All right, let's keep it going. Arista Networks, ANET. We've talked about this one a number of times. Kay, I think you've covered it. I've covered it.
Yep.
This is a favorite, and nice trend line here. Got the break of above the 216.29 high, and which I love to see. I think it pushed all the way up to 223 and change, and now we're got a retest of 216.29. Also note the 20-day moving average is right there, so providing a little bit of support along with the trend line. So if we can get that trend line to hold with that 20-day, this is 3 points of support all in the right in the same area, right? 215, 216. I'm looking for a continuation higher with this as a great entry point to get in. So yeah, whether it's trading in the commons or maybe taking an options position, I like this entry point here. What do you think, Kay? I know you've had this chart up in the past. Have you been looking at Arista recently? And
So Nate, this is one of those regretful plays that you could see it, but you did not enter it, and then all you can do is just wait and see.
This big shakeout right here in October was, I think it knocked a lot of people out of this trade.
Yeah, and Arista Network. I think the first time we talked about Arista Network was, I would say, somewhere in August, September.
Yeah.
Right. That's when we actually discussed Arista on our channel, and then it was on my radar, but I just never pulled the plug. And then I'm just on the sidelines watching this. This is one of those.
Higher.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how it goes, you know. I think, Kate, if you wanted to get in here, this is not a bad spot to take a partial position, you know, kind of a thing, because of where all the support is coming in. Sean, you're a breakout trader. This looks like a breakout trade to me. I always label you with that. I know you're far more diverse than that, but I like to go to you for these. So, what are your thoughts here on
Yeah,
ADA?
I do other things, Nate.
I know.
Yeah, no,
I got to give
no,
you more credit.
no, I like this. I do, because you've got three kind of points of confidence there. Obviously, you've got the support resistance, you've got the moving average, and the trend line. You could also say four as well, with the volume profile coming in nicely at about 216 level, which is nice to see. Although
Yeah.
the levels are not quite exact, I would just treat this as more of a trend trade, if that makes sense. So you can see the trend is obviously up. It's following this trend line, and it's been kind of following that in the quite closely within the last 2 months. Is that about a month and a
Yeah,
half?
going back. Yeah.
So I would just be looking for a continuation move. Now, the only thing that would alarm me here is the three topping candles, which is where the wicks are quite large from the top within the last week and a half, thereabouts, just to provide the extra kind of worry about resistance. But likewise, if we get a bit of momentum and the market's good, and we push through that, then that again would be a continuation of the trend, and I would like to follow that up. But I really like this one. I've written it down on my pad, and 216 is my level that I've written. So yeah, thank you, Nate, once again.
That's
I
how
think
I
my
know.
my only concern over there is the volume really dies down, right? It's like there aren't that many buyers at that level for this stock.
Yeah, if I got Sean to write it down, though, then I've done a good job of bringing a good chart for the week. So
I think
that's a nice.
I think honestly, you bring up a breakout trade every week, and I'm just like, fantastic.
Hey, I
It's
got
not on
one for you
purpose.
too today. Don't worry.
Yes.
I've got my watch list that I go through religiously every week. I mean, there's a ton of charts, and this is what I come up with. So I'm glad that it's working for you. That's good stuff. Kay, anything else you would add, or Sean, before we keep it going to Kay's charts?
I'm good.
I think we
No,
covered
all
this
good.
one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in on X, whether you're checking out the live stream on my channel or over on Wolf Financial. You can catch me in both spots quite often. I really enjoy working with Wolf on his newsletter, for example. Published another one today, and publish every week for him, as well as I got my own newsletter at Traders Education. So be sure to check that out. And big things coming as well for my Savvy Trader portfolio. So we'll get that added to the list here, but that's really where a lot of focus is going to go. You can be able to see all of my positions and how I trade my portfolio, and yeah, good things are coming. So stay tuned for that. And with that, Kay, what do you got this week? Starting with CRM.
Yeah, so CRM, we're going to touch it just for a second because last week we talked about the reported earnings. All SaaS companies that were reporting earning last week, they just blew it out of the waters. We talked about that either you would have a gap up or gap down. Most software companies do that, especially for earnings. We actually saw the gap up. Our 238, believe, was the all-time high. It's 263. So
Yeah,
it
that's a
blew out.
move.
Yeah, it's amazing how you could have benefited, but again, this is a binary play. So we're gonna skip on this one. We're not gonna spend too much time. This is I'm not trading CRM. This is more like a long-term position. I would want to get in at some point in time, but I have some better ones for the next slide.
Love to see that move up, though. Yeah.
All right, so this could be a breakout, could be a breakdown. This is GitLab. They are going to report earnings. I believe it's on Monday, if I'm not wrong. The general implied move is about 15 to 16, 17%. So let's say for our easy math is about $8. The stock is at around the 45. So you're looking at a breakout. If that happens, would be around the 60 level mark. And then if the breakdown happens, it will bring it down back to the 43, which is your 20-day 20 moving average, between 20-50 moving average. But what is interesting in this chart, if you see on the fib level, we have 53.88 as our resistance, where it got rejected so many times.
Yeah,
The
number of times.
right? Numerous times. The difference this time, and you see the volume starts dying down at those levels. There's not much volume happening. But what is interesting this time is you are coming to that resistance level during an earning, which was not the case in previous times, apart from when we had a similar situation last earnings and see they got rejected. Now, one of the interesting things that is happening, and I've been studying a lot of these SaaS companies, their EPS and their revenue, they generally are meeting them or beating them. They have not missed it, at least in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 earnings reports. You can go check it out. Actually, I'll be posting a video on my YouTube channel about GitLab, and they have had a phenomenal track record apart from a couple other software companies. So I think as long as they meet their or they can beat their EPS and revenue, we could see a breakout here. Now, will they be able to sustain it? That's to be seen. But I did cover it over here that the revenue for this company is going to be about $141 million. So from a software standpoint, this is about, if I'm not wrong, I think it's about $7 or $9 billion company. So that's a pretty decent revenue they're bringing for a quarter. And something to be watched. This is also an AI play. So if you are looking to add software companies in your portfolio, this could be one of the candidates to be. It's also an AI play. It's also in the DevOps SaaS side. So very, very interesting chart that I see. Like, and even though the RSI and both the MACD, at least the RSI is very close to its oversold territory, overbought territory. But I do think that the binary event would have an impact on this stock price. We could see a breakout over here to the next level, which I would say about 61.39. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay, this reminds me of Marathon Digital, just from a chart, look, where it's been consolidating, trading in this range, and then waiting for that breakout and then big move, continuing higher. So, we may not get the big move up, but it's setting up for potential, right? Like kind of similar setup, it looks like. After kind of setting a low, then pulling up and consolidating for a minute, very similar pattern. I haven't really had GitLab on my radar until you started talking about it. So much like Sean, I appreciate you bringing this one up because now it's squarely on my watch list. And I'll be checking out earnings this week.
Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, much the same, really. I mean, looking for this one for a breakout or a breakdown. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say it twice. You've got a nice range there. I'm looking for it to kind of come up with that range and hopefully retest it. But obviously, with earnings, you probably won't get a retest just because of the euphoria of the results of the earnings. So for some example, if it does go up to kind of 60 odd, you probably won't see it come back down to 52 straight away, at least. But yeah, I think playing this on the shorter term time frames, so the 5 and the 15 minute, would probably be my thoughts behind this one. A bit more of a day trade, one or two days with this one. But yeah, no, I've written it down on my list already, so I'm looking forward to this one. Tomorrow night, is it? Earnings?
I think it's Monday. I think it's after close on Monday. Yeah.
Cool. Lovely.
54.80. Man, like half a dozen times that thing's rejected at 54.80.
I know, right? It's and I feel like at some point in time, after hitting a resistance so many times, you would see that there would come a time that they would break that resistance. It's not the first time they're hitting that resistance.
Yeah.
And you have the event, which is, and just to add to the last point before we jump to the next one, is if you look at all the SaaS software companies that were last week, pretty much everybody had a big gap up. So if that momentum continues, I think there's a lot more enthusiasm, because when the year started, what happened was that in a higher interest environment, software companies, they tend to perform badly. But we have had a higher interest environment for the bulk of the year. And the companies are now starting to adjust their expectations. And even the companies who buy these software, enterprises that buy these softwares, they are also trying to adjust. See, remember, the IT spend on software companies, for most companies, is less than 10%. And this is a data that came out from Amazon CEO, mentioned it in the latest interview. So there's a lot of room to run, especially for companies who have not moved to cloud yet. So something to keep in mind.
I've got a question for you, Kay. Do you think this is potentially driving the IWM?
I don't know.
Could it be impacting it at all? Obviously, it's moving up quite a lot, and we've had a lot of SaaS earnings reports recently, and obviously it's moving with it. So.
Yeah, that could be. I actually don't track IWM that closely. Maybe I should.
I wonder what the percentage of IWM small, all those small caps are in SaaS. That's what you're getting at, right, Sean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. That's a really good question. That's worth looking into.
Maybe we should actually discuss that next week and see. Let's do the research and see what we find out. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I like it. All right, what else you have, Kay?
All right, the next one is Sean's favorite. I'm not gonna. But see, but here's the thing, right? What
So
Sean
funny.
brought it up, and it is very interesting. ExxonMobil is because Sean's predictions are actually coming true. Now, Sean, if
Yep.
you see here,
Yep.
we have this very tight range. And I don't know, I saw on Friday what happened was that I watched the last 2 minutes of the order flow. There was such a big fight at 102.97 to 103.2. Sorry, 103.02. And eventually the stock ended at 102.99. So last 2 minutes, that was a big fight between the buyers and seller. So I think this is definitely a breakout or breakdown at as soon we hit the range is getting tighter, but there is definitely a very heavy buying that comes at 102. Um, Interestingly, while doing the research, I also found that, and this is a news to me, that Venezuela is having a referendum to start a war with Guyana, and ExxonMobil has a lot of investment, and they actually have, I think, $5 or $7 billion worth of investment over there, where they do get the revenue from Guyana. So if we have another war breaking out over there, that could, of course, hit the stock price in the short term, which will impact trading. But I think long term, I think we should still be good. If it's in a long term portfolio, I don't see this as a problem. But that's an interesting one. Even on the weekly, you can see I put it at the bottom of the chart here. That trend line is still being respected on the weekly, but you do see on the daily there it breaks down, but then pulls back up the next day or the same day itself.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is I haven't. My prediction hasn't actually played out yet, though. I mean, it's looking good, but it hasn't actually played out. But one thing I would add on to that, and Nate, you might follow this, is the ATR, which is average true range. You can see it in the chart. It's not on the chart, but you can see it in the chart. It's a lot tighter, a lot smaller. Which normally, when that happens, it's leading up to a potential move. Nate, I don't know if you agree with me on that and with your experience behind you there. But I know you like ATR, that's why I bring the name up there. But generally, I still feel pretty good about my prediction, I suppose. But yeah, that's all I want to say. The ATR possibilities there.
Yeah, I like it. The tightening of the range means, that we're getting some consolidation here, and it's going to allow for a break in one way or another. So kind of in line with what we've been talking about, or you two have really been talking about here. So it does look pretty heavy. It does look heavy. A lot of those upper wicks and what have you. So I've been on the record talking about energy here for the last couple of months, and man, I am running out of patience, but I keep watching XLE at 8250. That's the key level. XLE breaks 8250, and all bets are off, in my opinion, in the sector. But we're well above it right now, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, XOM. I love that you bring it up, and I love the inside jokes there. It's good stuff.
Yeah. No, listen, ExxonMobil is one of the stocks that I trade on a weekly basis. So this is something that I'm pretty,
Yeah, well versed.
involved with. Yeah. So yeah, this definitely is one of the ones that I think it's a good to watch. Also, it gives a good indication for the energy sector itself.
Speaking of where we can find you weekly,
Yes, you can find me on Twitter or X. As you say, I make this mistake every single week, and I do have a YouTube channel as well. You can follow me there, where I cover a lot of stock analysis and weekly trades. And then, of course, I also have a Substack that you can subscribe to.
all good stuff. You guys, this is a great week yet again. A lot of great charts. We're coming to the end of the year, and there's no shortage of possibilities and opportunities. So I love it. I'm getting even more active, I feel like, in the last week, and then heading into this week, I'm far more prepared than I've been able to get because of how busy things get this time of year. But yeah, looking forward to kind of getting past earnings, honestly, because they kind of distract me a little bit. I don't know if that's the same for you guys, but I'm like, ooh, what's going on? Should I trade around this? And then once the earnings season's passed, I get back to my kind of more core focus list. So kind of looking forward to that with the rate decision in the week afterwards. Lot of good stuff coming. We've got a holiday live stream that will be kicking out here in a couple of weeks. So everybody make sure you tune into that. And yeah, be sure to subscribe and smash the like button if you haven't already. Do appreciate everybody's support here and enjoying the live stream. Kay, what do you got coming this week?
Well, definitely the SaaS companies that are reporting earnings this
You're
week.
all
And I'm
about 'em.
actually and then I'm actually looking at Broadcom and Lululemon because you have a semiconductor and a retail. Those are the ones. And keeping a watch on ExxonMobil and see how that plays out.
How about you, Sean?
Yeah, obviously for me, it'd be Neo when it on Tuesday afternoon or morning here, I suppose. So looking forward to that one, and obviously just kind of managing my swings. I'm still kind of sitting back with my trading at the moment. Well, to a certain with day trading, but sitting on my swings and kind of managing them. Like I said earlier, kind of monitoring where to take profits, where it might be a good idea. But yeah, just kind of managing things at the moment, and obviously looking forward to Neo earnings.
Good stuff. Yeah. Neil's going to be exciting. I'm excited Monday for Marathon Digital, see how that position is going with Bitcoin pushing towards 40K. I'm looking forward to see what SoFi does, given that we're both on opposite sides. It's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. And opposite sides, you know what I'm saying. So, all right, guys, great stuff yet again. We'll do this again next week for sure. But in the meanwhile, don't be shy to hit up Sean or Kay or myself on X. And we'll be happy to get after it with some more trading talk. You guys have a great week out there, and thanks again.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
See you later.